Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 214, and what a week this has been. Absolutely wild price action in the stock market. And although the traditional markets did push up quite a bit into their weekly close, the crypto market, on the other hand, has actually started showing signs of stalling out. And now, comparing prices to when I was filming last week's Red Pill, the only thing that's actually higher today over the week is pretty much Bitcoin, and not by much, only about 1% higher overall for the week so far. Of course, later today we do have CME opening up right around the crypto market's weekly close, so that could absolutely bring in some last minute volatility. But overall, we've been pretty much just sideways for Bitcoin and slightly down for many of the top altcoins. And we can see this clearly here in the total 3 chart, which is the entire crypto market cap chart excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. This is where we've been kicking off the prior 2 weeks of Red Pill podcasts, as you're likely well aware. And so far, the highest daily close that we've had on the total 3 chart was this past Monday, April 28th, the day right after the new moon. And that's pretty much also the case for total 2 as well. That would be the entire altcoin market cap chart, excluding Bitcoin and including Ethereum. So we can say for now, the altcoin market overall has started showing signs of stalling out around the April new moon. And that was something we were anticipating. And I don't say this to defend last week's Red Pill analysis. You can all vouch for the fact that on May 1st, just a couple days ago, I sent out an update post here on Patreon when Bitcoin was pushing into the 97K zone. And I stated vulnerably that I could be wrong about my outlook on a pullback for the overall market leading into the May full moon. I was direct and honest about my potential miscalculation, and I wanted to share that all with you as soon as possible on that key date of May 1st that I decoded, so that you could all be aware of my outlook on the situation and to know that I still had conviction in my overall analysis on Bitcoin of at least correcting back to the 88K territory, regardless of it pushing up so high in this current relief rally. And I'm sure our mastermind community here appreciated that timely update and my openness in that post. So now that we're here and it's May 4th and we've had some days pass between that last update and today, some of you might be wondering, well, have you changed your mind? And the answer is no. I think generally we're due for a pullback across the entire market, especially when looking at the major indices. This rally has been equally as dramatic as the sell-off into Trump's tariffs announcement about a month ago. And when you see a market shift from extreme fear to extreme greed so suddenly, that's a sign of a fake out is playing out. And I believe that's what's happening right in front of our eyes. And the decode I'm about to share with you here today puts even more emphasis on the significance of the third set of key dates that I shared with you all over a month ago, and I've been recapping in every Red Pill for pretty much the last 3 to 4 weeks. And that's the dates of May 5th through 8th during this 19th week of the year that we're about to move into. And it also has everything to do with the recent event with Warren Buffett stepping down from being the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway yesterday. The code I'm about to share with you will be absolutely mind-blowing. But before we get into the decode and today's Red Pill podcast, as always, make sure to get relaxed, get comfortable, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's a little bit earlier in the day, or a glass of wine or beer if it's a little later out there in the matrix. And also make sure to comment below this post here on Patreon to vote on the altcoins that you'd like me to cover in next week's Red Pill podcast. But before you leave a comment, just make sure you use the search function here on Patreon to check that I have not covered the project in at least 3 months. So if it's been over 3 months since I've reviewed that altcoin, or if I've never covered that altcoin before, as long as it has at least 1 year of chart history, you can go ahead and comment below with the name of that altcoin and please include the ticker symbol next to it as well. And whatever submissions get the most likes, those top 4 will be selected for next week's Red Pill. Now let's get into this. So as mentioned, we have my third set of key dates ahead, being May 5th through 8th. This is not news to you guys. You're probably all well aware if you've watched my last couple Red Pill podcasts. For sure, you're aware of these dates. And for those that are new here, just a quick recap of why that time frame is significant, starting with May 5th, since it will be the 5-5 date, the power number 55, and we've had a bunch of significant events, starting with 2-2, February 2nd of this year, and February 2nd was a liquidation ritual for the crypto market. You could see this 2-2 or 22 is also the 33rd day of the year, and then we had another market ritual on March 3rd, the Gregorian 33 date. That also leaves 303 days left in the year, by the way. And then we had exactly 33 days later on April 4th. This was a powerful day because it was another market ritual following Liberation Day, which was on the 2nd of April. We're going to talk about that a lot in today's Decode, but we have 33 days after the 3-3 date, a very powerful day, one of the biggest losses in the market since the C19 crash happening on this particular day. And then also, this is important to note for today's Decode because April 4th was the 94th day of the year, and Warren Buffett just retired at the age of 94. But that's just a side note. We'll be getting back to him in a moment. But getting back to this, we've had the 2-2 event, we had the 3-3 event, we had the 4-4 event, and then tomorrow will be May 5th. This is very important because we've had the 22 master number, we had the 33 master number, we had the 44 power number, and now we're looking at the 55 power number for tomorrow, May 5th, the 5-5 date. I would not be shocked if something goes down, and I'm going to actually provide even more data today of why I believe that's the case, especially since May 5th, tomorrow, will be 33 days after Trump's Liberation Day, which was on April 2nd. And with all the 33 rituals we've had this year, I just told you a couple. We also had last week the silver chart closing at $33. We had the gold chart closing off the week at $3,300. We talked about this last week, but we've had so many of these 33 rituals. This is why I'm expecting something for tomorrow to affect the traditional markets, which of course in turn will affect the crypto market. And this energy will last throughout the entire week, leading into our upcoming full moon, which is on the 12th, next Monday. So we have tomorrow being 33 days after Liberation Day, and this was all about tariffs. Let me get into the gematria with you guys. We have tariff giving you 33 in gematria. Well, that's shocking, isn't it? And then we had yesterday the date of May 3rd, the day that Warren Buffett retires. And if you consider the month numbers are clearly out of order based on their prefixes, like we have the month of October, Octo being considered the 10th month, but that doesn't really make sense, does it? Because the prefix of Octo is 8. Like an octagon has 8 sides. It's an 8-sided polygon, but in the Gregorian system, it's considered 10. So when you consider that October should actually be the 8th month and November, starting with the prefix Novem, should be the 9th month, and December, starting with Deci or Deci, which is Latin for 10, should be the 10th month. Then you have January, named after Janus, 2 heads, 2 pillars, 2 towers. That's your 11th month. And then February, named after Februus, being your 12th. Then March becomes your 1st month. March 1, April 2, May 3. Making yesterday in a more esoteric system, the 3-3 date when May is your third month and third day. Now, perhaps some of you are aware Warren Buffett has openly stated when asked about his opinion on Trump's tariffs and Liberation Day that, quote, tariffs are an act of war. This is what he said, not me. And during this whole time, when many top investors were losing billions during this market drawdown over the past couple months, Warren Buffett was one of the few already sitting on an insane stockpile of cash. So he was not nearly affected as much as many in a similar position to him in terms of net worth. And that means he just retired after hitting a grand slam home run to win the game in the ninth inning. This past 5 months for him is what he'll be remembered for most. It cements his legacy, effectively. But I want you to remember him saying that tariffs are an act of war. That's one of his final quotes as he's leaving this position and kind of moving forward into the next chapter of his life, with this particular statement being said in this particular economic environment, which has all been reactionary by Trump's tariff policy. So tariffs are an act of war. His name is literally Warren. I mean, just let's keep going, okay? War has the 42 code in it. This is very important. Liberation Day was on April 2nd, the 4-2 date. 42. We have the 42. By the way, this was all kicking off heavily in the month of March. March is Mars. Mars is the god of war. This is tied back to Aries, also tied to the mythology Ares, which is Mars, god of war. This is when the time frame where they would go back to war, actually, in the month of March in the prior system, pre-Gregorian calendar. I don't want to go too off the rails here. I want to just try my best to educate as we go along, but just remember, anybody who's been part of our community for at least, 6 months, maybe a year, you heard me calling out this time frame of March, April as the most significant for this particular year of 2025. March, April, and September, October, right? And perhaps some people remember the last time I spoke with Logan from Decode Your Reality and Jason of Archaics. When we did a roundtable together, I talked a lot about the months of March, April. And apparently Jason and I had a lot of overlap in our thoughts of how this can all go down. But anyways, we've been keeping this time frame on our radar. Now that the month of April has passed, we've seen how everything has gone down. And I think this is building up more and more of a narrative that leads into the grand narrative of a, quote, World War III. Not my words necessarily, just kind of what the talking heads have been predictively programming us with, if you will. So we have this 42 code. We have war giving you 42. Warren Buffett retired on the day leaving 242 days left in the year. That's the palindrome of the number 24 and the mirror of the number 42. And if you take from April 2nd, including the end date, over to this time frame of May 3rd, you're going to have 4 weeks and 4 days. This is your 44. Esoterically, it becomes 2 4s. That's 24. We were also talking before about tariffs, giving you 24 in Chaldean. And we'll get back to the 24 and 42 code in a moment. But quickly, I want to also mention how from the day that Warren Buffett stepped down as the Berkshire Hathaway CEO on May 3rd to his next birthday, which will be, I believe, the 30th of August. Let's double check that. Here we are, 30th August. You're going to see something really important here. The fact that the amount of time between the day that he stepped down and also his upcoming birthday is 119 days. That's the 119 code, 9/11. I was using that in the prior decodes for what I was saying about the April 27th date, I believe. But that April 29th, April 27th connection, we clearly see that that was actually bullish for the markets. So I need to take some time to consider that when we get the 119 or when we get the 911, that could have opposite energy, right? Because 911 was about bringing the towers down. It was a negative thing. But 119, the mirror or the opposite of that polarity, would be building up. But remember, it was still building up to break it back down. So I do think that seeing Warren Buffett leave into this particular weekend as we're at like what seems like the peak of this relief rally in the stock market after a historic market crash, and looking at his track record leading up to this moment, it's all seeming very symbolic to me. Now, perhaps some of you disagree, but I'll continue today's decode, connect the numbers, share my thoughts, and you could make your own decisions. But I believe that is important for that miscalculation, the connection that I was making to the 119th day of the year. And let me just quickly go back to that. April 29th, and that ended up being bullish, which, by the way, this is crazy because when you take from April 29th, the 123 code, you're talking about August 30th being 123 days left in the year. And then we have the day he steps down as the 123rd day of the year. But we're going to that's just a side note. What was so wild when I noticed the fact that his birthday is the 242nd day of the year, leaving 123 days left in the year. And the day he steps down is the opposite. 123rd day of the year, 242 days left in the year. What a coincidence, right? That's pretty weird. So remember, Liberation Day was on the 4-2 date, written internationally as 2-4, and May 3rd, the day 242. The palindrome, we have tariff, gives you 24 in Chaldean, and tomorrow, May 5th, is the day leaving 240 days in the year. That's your 24 code. Using the rules of numerology, you remove the 0. And of course, we have the fact that May 5th, the 5-5 Gregorian date, will also have a 55 double-digit date numerology, and that 55 ties to the year we're in, the year of 25, the Hebrew year of 5785, reduces to 25. Esoterically, 2-5 becomes 2 5s, 55, and that ties to Satoshi Nakamoto, which is incredibly important for today's decode. We have Satoshi Nakamoto giving you the 55s in multiple ciphers, and then we also have the 24 and 42 code within Satoshi Nakamoto because 181 is the 42nd prime number, and 89 is the 24th prime number. And we keep talking about this connection between 24 and 42 that ties back to war. Also, Satoshi is Saturn. We just had Warren Buffett step down on a Saturn's day. This is all tied in, okay? Now, we brought up Satoshi. We know that this mythological archetype of Satoshi just turned 50 years old during the week of Trump's Liberation Day, and 50 is symbolic of the Jubilee. So it's now officially Satoshi's Jubilee, in a way. And who just died during the Catholic Jubilee? That's right, the Pope. And isn't it wild how Queen Elizabeth died during her Jubilee? Another coincidence, I guess. Now keep in mind that even though I'm bringing up Satoshi's Jubilee and the connections to death, that could be very symbolic for the year 2026 because we'll be in Satoshi's Jubilee until April 5th of 2026. And we have a very important eclipse happening next year, 2026, in February, March. Annular solar eclipse followed by this total lunar eclipse. I'm not saying that Bitcoin's going to die, but I would say that I would not be shocked if there's something very ritualistic that happens to Bitcoin this time frame between now and April 5th, 2026, where it's extremes to the upside and extremes to the downside. That wouldn't shock us if we have the all-time high and then we also have the market bottom for Bitcoin before Satoshi's next birthday. Just keep that in mind, okay? Just think about that. The rise and fall. So getting back to this, we were speaking about the Pope a little bit and the number 42 and 24. Pope Francis actually became the Pope on March 13th, which is Also very symbolic. Some of you will be aware of this connection to March 13th. This was very symbolic for this year as well because it was the start of our lunar cycle with the total lunar eclipse that we just passed through. And this is clearly the year he died. Now, between March 13th, 2013 and April 21st, his alleged death, you have 4422 code. More of these 22s, 44s, 24, 42. It's the same numbers. They're patterning over and over and over again. And this would be 12 years, half of the number 12, or 24, excuse me. Side note, 2 12s, 24, right? I know this might be a little confusing to some people. Hang out there, it'll all make sense as we continue. So lastly, I want to bring in the element of the number 19. And this is because we're moving into the 19th week of the year. We talked about this a couple weeks ago too, but the number 19, it's tied to artificial intelligence. We have A being the first letter, and then we have I being the 9th letter together. You have AI is 19 or 19. And you all remember the C19 ritual. C19 declared by the WHO in March 2020, 5 years ago, and that was utilizing this number 19, AI. And it was immediately following the C19 years that propelled us forward dramatically into the AI household conversation with everything AI now, whether it be just basic utility of stuff like ChatGPT and Gemini, and now pretty much every website you go on has some sort of AI chatbot. People are making AI art, AI movies, AI replacing actors, AI this, AI that. You all know about it now, and it's pretty much come to the world stage as a household, everyday element in our lives post C19 ritual. So it makes you wonder, what was the real purpose of that lockdown? Well, we should all see through it all to know that it was about placing in the infrastructure that will be part of the Aquarian age, the Aquarian economy that I teach about here with blockchain technology. So getting back to this, we have this number 19 code and its ties to AI, and we're moving into the 19th week of the year on May 5th, and May 5th also has 19 standard date numerology on this exact day. So we'll also utilize the 19 code for the rest of this week, of course. And if you take from the day that the Pope died on the 21st of April, you're going to see that, interestingly enough, over to this Friday will be a total of 19 days. And this day of Friday, May 9th, has been coming up quite a bit in my decodes lately. So I'm going to bring a couple more elements in, and I'm going to show you why this date is so powerful. And May 9th also happens to be 33 days from April 7th. Now, April 7th was so far the market's lows for the entire market during this tariff war crash that we've just all lived through. And we also have this Wednesday, the Federal Reserve's FOMC meeting, when Fed Chair Powell will, spellcast the markets on May 7th. You can see that right over here. And that will be 33 days after April 4th. And April 4th, you have the 4-4 date. You're now taking it 33 days into the future, and you're ending up with this Wednesday. 33 days. We've talked about these power number connections, also the 33 connections. I'm just going to continue to give you more and more and more. It's amazing how many this week has. Also, we have May 5th, 55 double-digit date numerology, and you tie it to Donald Trump's birthday, and you're going to see that they are 5 weeks and 5 days apart from the 5-5 date with the 55 date numerology. Crazy, right? So now to bring in a couple more 55s into the code, I found this article today which shows that Warren Buffett had a 5.5 million % return since 1964. And by the way, Warren Buffett took over Berkshire Hathaway in 1965, which was the same Chinese year that we're in now, the year of the wood snake. So isn't that interesting how he took over Berkshire in the year of the wood snake, and here he is exactly 60 years later retiring in the same year of the wood snake. And since he technically took over as a chairman and the largest shareholder of Berkshire in 1970, that means it's been exactly 55 years with his 5.5 million% returns to end his career into the week that starts with the 5-5 date on the 55 double digit date numerology. You can't make this up how many of these numbers have connected. Also, 5 weeks and 5 days before Trump's next birthday, which is tied to gold. 79 years old, 79th element, gold, Aurum. We've been talking a lot about the connections to gold this year. It's at all-time highs, obviously, throughout this whole tariff crash. Gold has been doing amazing. Right now we're seeing gold kind of give back some of its gains. I believe a lot of that is pouring into Bitcoin, but that's a side conversation. For right now, you can all see that this is a powerful week ahead. And if I could share one more gem with you regarding this week, it's tied to Rosh Hashanah, the Hebrew New Year, which is on September 22nd through the 24th. And the main date of Rosh Hashanah will be September 23rd. And remember, our main theme today has been the number 33. Well, this Thursday, May 8th, is actually connecting to the first day of Rosh Hashanah, September 22nd, by 137 days. And 137 is your 33rd prime number. When we include the end date, the final day of Rosh Hashanah makes it to next Sunday. So this is still within the 19th week of the year, and this will be when we do the next Red Pill podcast, by the way. So we have the final day of Rosh Hashanah also connecting to May 11th. This is the furthest you can push this 137 connection out. Okay? And it's all happening in the 19th week of the year. It's very, very incredible how this is all coded together. I just realized some of these things this morning. So because this still lands in the 19th week of the year, it's making this even more powerful with all these connections. And when we consider that the main date of Rosh Hashanah is the 23rd, I do think it's important for us to connect it specifically to the day of May 9th, which we were talking about a little bit earlier, and that's 137 days apart. We have that 33rd prime connection. Both dates, though, have a 23 standard date numerology, and 23 esoterically is 2 3s, 33. This will also be 3 days before the upcoming full moon on May 12th. So you have another 3 connection, and also May 12th, it's on the 12th day, 1 plus 2, that becomes 3. We're talking about the esoteric third month in the calendar. That's your 33 connection. And the 9th will be 3 days before, which lands into the date with the 3 connection into a Monday. Full moon on a moon day. It's big. Now, I know that these are kind of just me pulling out a bunch of different connections and I'm pouring it all into this, but when we have the Hebrew New Year tied into this, when we have Liberation Day, the most important exoteric event, when we have death of the Pope, literally Warren Buffett retiring randomly on this exact time frame, like, wow. This has been a historic turn of events. Pope dying, number one investor on earth retires. What's next, man? You got Trump posting pictures dressed up like the Pope. You got Kanye doing craziness. Like, this is wild, and it's, I believe, all incredibly symbolic. So getting back to this, there's just too many 33 connections. You're all well aware 33 is the master number of transmutation, changing from one form to the next, and it all starts with tomorrow. 33 days after Liberation Day into May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo for anyone out there who is celebrating it. I myself will probably be making some really amazing black bean tacos. But anyways, let's get into the charts now. I think this decode speaks for itself, an abundance of connections, and I do feel that this week ahead is likely to be the week where we start to see a change of character in these markets. And I do think it started to show itself throughout last week. Last week, we did have, a little bit of corrective energy coming in for the altcoins. But because Bitcoin pushed up pretty high, and we do have sometimes when Bitcoin dominance is pushing up and then Bitcoin stalls out, we can see some of that liquidity flood into some of the alts, but generally it's been stalling out since we pushed into this Friday when the traditional markets closed. And Bitcoin peaking at around almost 98K. Now we're looking at about 95. We still have a little bit to go before the CME chart opens up. You can see it was at 97.5. So there will be a little bit of a gap to the upside, although I'm not really too concerned right now with that gap. It's the gap to the downside that I'm expecting to be filled. So however it's going to happen, whether we fill it now into the full moon and we pop back up, great. Or if we fill it first to the upside and then we come down to fill this lower gap second, great. To me, it doesn't really matter those specifics. We all know a lot could happen for Bitcoin between when CME opens and when the traditional markets fully open. So you got to keep an open mind to that. And remember, to see Bitcoin have a correction from where we are now down to about 88K, that correction would be about, let's call it 8%. And for XRP, where XRP is at, an 8% correction would actually push us back to $2. So that's why I'm feeling that 88K level, it's one of those final pullbacks with Bitcoin dominance being this high that will actually push Bitcoin dominance even higher. So I'm not changing my analysis at all. I'm sticking to it. Will I be wrong? It's possible. I've been wrong before. I do my best to, refine as I go. But overall, the energetics of this year with expecting a big correction, March, April for the start of our lunar cycle, that wasn't incorrect. That was 100% correct. It was that we did not have an alt season first, right? That was where I was wrong. Now that we have Bitcoin dominance pushing up back into territory that we've seen it go to before, right before an alt season, who cares about being wrong? At the end of the day, if we get this move up for Bitcoin dominance and then we get it to come back down, that is all that matters. So what's going on in the month to month? It is what it is, especially when we're looking at altcoins, which are insanely speculative. And at the end of the day, we could see Bitcoin dominance roll over 2%, and it could go into a complete separate basket of tokens that aren't even in the top 50. That's how chaotic and random this can be right now. And I think we could all agree with that when we look at the Ethereum chart, which has been horrendous lately. And that's not how it went in the last two cycles. In the last two cycles, we've seen ETH much, much stronger than it is today. It's not the case. Even with what's going on right now with this move up for Solana, perfectly topping into the inauguration date with all these shit coins on the Sol blockchain. I mean, that's very unexpected to see the way that's all turned out and how it's also had quite a correction since topping out around the inauguration, almost 70% for Sol. You would have not expected that. If anything, what people would have expected was all the shit coins on Sol to flood back into something that felt a little bit more stable, and you wouldn't have had such a large correction in Sol. But this is all just part of the grand scheme. And it's up to us to just stay calm and navigate this all neutrally while it's unfolding. So let's get into these charts. Let's look at this from a more traditional angle. But really quickly, I do want to just show how total 3 and what we've been keeping track of is not that far off. We have in white over here, it was topping out around the 26th, whatever. We topped out on the 28th. Who cares? We're now coming down. Let's see how we react to tomorrow and into the next FOMC meeting. I have this yellow line here because I do believe it's an area that will get back tested. And if we look at the fractal and how it's playing out past the end of May into early June and all the way up until the beginning of July, this 1 month time frame here back tests this $780 billion level twice. Let me just check and see if my microphone, okay, good. So it backtests it twice. So now whether we're in this move, whether it's like this right now, or whether it's like this right now. I don't care. No one should care. Seriously, you should not care if it's going to happen next month, if it's going to happen the month after that. Like at the end of the day, this is shit that traditional investors in the stock market need to wait a decade for. You guys are going to get it in like a couple months, so just relax. Unless some major curveball is thrown and this is the first cycle ever where Bitcoin dominance makes it up past 95 and we don't see an alt season, which that would be definitely pretty fucked up. But we haven't seen it yet. And so far, whilst Bitcoin is pushing up to these levels, well, actually, you know what I can say? We just watched Bitcoin go from 74 to 97. Do you guys remember when it was trading down here just a month ago? People thought it was the end. They thought it was the end. And now we have Bitcoin back at the same fucking prices that it traded at all of November, December, and for the most part, January. And like 3/4 of February. We're at the same price. So it's like, this is how quick we can dump and how quick we can recover. All right. And you see this fractal overlaid here. This is from last year too. It's just pushed over in a different way. And it's considering the energetics a lot more than just taking these tops as like arbitrary tops to match. And I find it pretty fascinating. This rally up, stall, another push higher, and then all of this chop, a major correction, another major correction, and then this insane higher high rally, which also has a short-term pullback. And if that was the case, this right here, what it shows is we would tap back into 87. It could push us into like May 17th, maybe even like call it May 20th. And then when we push back up, we can be in the beginning of June back at 107K. So smashing through this 100K territory and having a push into all-time highs that ends around July. That is not far off from my overall analysis at all, because I've been saying that I'm anticipating this to end for Bitcoin before September with a lot of emphasis on July and August. So however it turns out, whether we're in this stage, or whether we're literally just about to have one of these smaller pullbacks like this. Just something we could only fill the 88K level and then just blast straight up into the later in May. However it goes, doesn't really concern me. It's all about just being patient for the move. Now, whom it will concern are people who are trying to get very fancy in these markets. People who are trying to sell it all and buy back in, or they're trying to leverage trade, and best of luck. This is the stage in the cycle that I would be cautious. I wouldn't get too fancy right now, especially right now. I would have not even advised that earlier in this year. Of course, if you're heavily in profits, if you read my update posts of all of January, of all of February, you'll see every single update post said, especially to XRP investors and Bitcoin investors, de-risk if you need to. They're all here on Patreon. You're welcome to read them as you wish. You never heard any de-risking talk back in September of last year, and you definitely didn't hear it at the end of March this year. That was not the situation. So we're now in a place where we're right in the middle of the trading range for Bitcoin. We can have a small correction. Bitcoin dominance being this high can pull back the altcoins along with it. And then it's about just waiting for that final surge to the upside in Bitcoin dominance, which is, as you can see, Bitcoin dominance has been going parabolic lately. So we will quickly touch base on that. I talked about the CME gap. That is really important because we have two of them. Talking about the timing, whether this is folding over right now, into the month of May, or if it's like this June peak, or if it's over here in the July, it doesn't matter. You can see that there's a resistance and we need a little bit of chop before the explosion. So let's go over to the Bitcoin chart. We can see Bitcoin's made it to a critical level right around the 702 fib in the midst of retesting the golden pocket, which I do not like. This was pushed up way too quickly, in my opinion. It's an unhealthy relief rally, but hey, it's crypto. This is Bitcoin. This is how it acts. And if we were to come back into this major trend line, which you can see it's been in play now for the entire bull run, from the lows of the bear market in November 2022 when Bitcoin was trading at 15K. we've continuously traded back into this major trend line. And every time we were below it was the best time to buy Bitcoin, which there weren't many opportunities. We had over here just a handful of days. So, yep, we are now seeing the relationship with this trend line is clear because we had a bunch of chop over here before this release in energy. But this big release in energy is typically something we come back to fill. And if we were to get that complete by the full moon, call it May 12th, May 13th, it's still pushing us into 88K. If you look to the right of the screen, you're going to see right around this red line, the 88K. Let me put a horizontal ray for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. Boom, right there on 88. And that wouldn't be weird. That would also be symbolic connection to the Pope, who just passed at 88. So let's see. I think 88 is good enough. And as I just showed you, with 88K for Bitcoin, that's about an 8% correction. That would bring XRP potentially to like 199 just on an 8% move. And we know XRP pulls back more than Bitcoin. So that's like a 195, 194, 193 XRP. I'm not going to split hairs, but we'll get to the XRP chart in a moment. And that to me right there is like, if we got that pullback, I really think that's it. I think that we should now be ready for just more up for all of July and August. We're in May right now. We still have to get through May. June, we'll see. I want to see how the reaction is to the current exoteric event that we're about to push into, which is the FOMC meeting. So I want to be cautious right now. It's why I haven't been making any crazy moves throughout all of the popular things that have been told to investors as of recently, all the stuff going on with Trump. So here we are. Let me get to the weekly chart. Actually, let me see how the monthly close went, because we've since had a monthly close. Wow, amazing. Closed up 14% of the month. It's looking pretty good. Still no price discovery until above 103. Let's look at the weekly. Got a little bit of a gap there, so the data is not perfect. Let me look here. Okay, so about 2% of the week is a bi-weekly close. It is coming up next week. So next week is big because it'll be a bi-weekly, and it's kind of made this cup form. I do anticipate a handle would be the healthiest. Let me look on the daily. It's not clean enough. Like what I would like is the W play. So that's a clean W. You could see right there about the 88K would be the neckline. That'd be beautiful. Right at this break between the daily open of the 21st and the 22nd, the day the Pope died, which Bitcoin hit 88K when he was 88 years old. So that backtest right there would be a clean W play. And if we were to look at what that would measure to, I know it's a bit extreme to take from the wicks, but that's what I've seen actually plays out. On like a stock, you wouldn't do that. Yeah, that makes total sense. If we were to have that back test there, it would play like this. I do think this was obviously going to be resistance because look, that whole zone was where you had to deal with the most chop, and then that was also the zone where you broke down. So that made sense to get rejected there. Now, as for the back test here, that would be just building out more in the trading range between here. Let me show you. You see all of this? We have nothing here. We fell through it fast, and then we got rejected over here before coming down for a lower low. But then once we had this resistance, we shot straight through it again. So we had nothing being built here between 88 and 94. So I'm not like trading this right now, guys. So this isn't in my benefit. If I'm not shorting Bitcoin right now, okay, I'm just telling you as a technical analyst why this makes sense. And then also looking back at the time that it took last time, it did not just like immediately pop up and continue higher. We were trading here for 200 days, 240 something days from, let's look at the breakout to the following breakout, 250. So if we were to measure from the same zone, I'd actually fair to put it here technically. You could see that puts us into the middle of June, which would be like another 50 days from today. And guys, that would actually make sense for us to break into new all-time highs in June. Because remember, between June, wherever that led us, so we measured from here, 250 days. From here, which the breakout was measured here to here, took about 30 days. And the measurement from here to here, call it 30 days. So from June 22nd, wherever I pulled that, over 30 days, you're talking about the end of July. Let's look at the moons. What happens? Look at that, guys. You see July 25th, that's the new moon, July. It is perfect. It's perfect, in my opinion, to anticipate June new all-time high. And then we're talking 109K pushed up to 120 minimum. That's what I see. And I think it's after that we get the alt season, which is the typical thing that we see Bitcoin do. Let's look at some of the moving averages and see where we're at. All right, so we're holding this 8 simple moving average pretty nicely. Until we fail that, I don't think... Ooh, yeah, this is good. Okay, so I'm seeing something that we haven't seen in some time, which is the 55 crossing back above the 200 exponential. Sorry I paused there. It's not common. Okay, so you see right here we have around 91. That would be the level that would fill the CME gap that we have to the downside. And if we can't hold that, really what we're looking is, there is huge. This 200 exponential and the 55 simple where they're kissing each other right there. I think that's a powerful signal. Yeah, it happened back in September where you see like we momentarily crossed below it, where the 55 like momentarily crossed below the 200 exponential, and then it got right back up. I think that's the case right now too. And you can see that when this happened, we did in fact backtest it on the second cross. That'd be a gift, but it's gonna feel like shit for everyone if that happens. So a lot of people, like the wolfpack here, will be like, yeah, but like most people are gonna fucking hate this if that was to occur. It's a little deep for most people. Although still, you would have a healthy move down to 80 and you'd still have an inverse head and shoulders for those pattern people out there. Even though it's kind of fucked up looking now. I'm not a big pattern trader personally, but we just have thin air between here at about 92. When I zoom out, you see where my cursor is and look to the left, below 92.5 all the way down to about 85. It's pretty much thin air. We've just pumped through it and crashed through it. Even this event over here, which was tied to Trump, remember I told you the 3-3 ritual? That was it. This Twin Towers candle. We went straight through it and went right back down to the 85K level. And that was around the level that we broke through. So I think it's just like a kind of a fair value situation. Let's get over to Ethereum, see what's going on, because you guys know my thoughts pretty clearly on the situation with Bitcoin and my levels. They haven't changed. All right, ETH is holding pretty stable, but it's seemingly at resistance too, where we've gotten to this 1800 level about 2 weeks straight, unable to break concretely through back into 2000. And I think as long as we're below 2000, that's a huge sign of weakness, because that's a psychological number for us here in Ethereum land. You're going to see what I mean, because when I zoom out, you see this peak over here, rejection at 2000, here rejection at 2000, here rejection at 2000, big pullback, pretty much back to where we've recently traded. And since we haven't gotten to 2000 after this major correction that we've just seen for Ethereum from 4,100 all the way down to 1,300. So I think anything under 2,000 is just a sign that we have weakness in Ethereum, and that's holding back a lot of altcoins, because I still do think we'll have that move up for ETH with a general alt season I kind of hope we don't, though. It would be so cool to see all of that just go into like the ISOs or something, but maybe that's me being a little biased because I do hold a lot of XRP. But just generally, like, who the hell wants to invest in Ethereum after getting this huge correction and seeing its lackluster cycle where it's not able to push higher than it's not able to push into price discovery, which even Bitcoin now has been trading in price discovery for 200 days, you know? It's like we're pushing into a fucking year and we have not seen that change in character in Ethereum. We're actually down 60% in the Ethereum chart, and from the recent pullback we're still currently almost down 60%. So this is just a weakness. You know, you really have not too much positive to say. And that's not me trying to FUD people out of ETH. You do you. I'm just personally, I'm not, I have nothing nice to say about this chart, except sure, it's holding a horizontal trading range that goes back to 2021, but clearly a much different vibe from the last bull run in regards to price expansion. And yeah, same flaws as the last cycle too regarding the actual blockchain. So that's another thing to mention for those that are a little bit more on the tech side that care about that stuff. Like if you have no development and nothing positive going on that side, then who cares? And also the other thing that to mention about Ethereum, not to be negative, but Vitalik was like really glazing Shiba Inu back in the last cycle, and sure, that did very well for early investors, but yeah, that was very strange to see all of that, those antics. And it just feels like a very immature community, right? Where actually back here, all throughout the launch and all throughout this time, ETH was an incredibly mature community. And then the shitcoin stuff started, and all the bullshit on the ERC20 bullshit with NFTs and just absolute nonsense. Yeah, made it so it's not what it used to be. Let's move on. Let's look at XRP. XRP also holding, coiling up around these major EMAs. We have the 13, 21, 34 all coiling together. It's nice to see us holding this $2 support, although I do think this $2 2-cent level would make a lot of sense to be back tested. Let me show you why, because that is the key level. When I hold my cursor across the screen, you'll see for yourself. So we have this breakthrough above 2 into 3, back test, back test, back test, swipe through, back test, back test, back test, back test, spring. We held it as a support. So I think XRP is still looking good, even if it were to come back into like 180 again, personally. That would be a move of about 17, 18%. I'm not saying it will go there, but this pattern that it broke through does look pretty rough, and there was not the ETF launch like people were anticipating. But remember, what was my decode of the ETF launch? I said, if it launches, I'm still expecting a pullback. I don't give a shit if it launches or doesn't launch. The fact that it didn't launch, it's still doing what we anticipated it to do, which is riding up until there was a release of information that it wouldn't be launched. And now it's going down. So people that think it's going down because of that, I'm sorry. It would have went down anyways, even if it did launch, with the overall energetics of the market and the fact that it would have been a sell the news event. We saw it happen with Bitcoin and we saw it happen with Ethereum. Why wouldn't it happen with XRP, which I admitted before, I have a lot of it, way more than I have Ethereum, but it's still a pumpy dumpy project when you look at the charts. So this is why I wasn't excited about that ETF. I'm never excited about stuff like that. It's just when you're in this market long enough, you know how to be neutral amongst these popular things that are happening that everyone knows about, that the whales will trade against. So yeah, like at this time, I'm still, again, coming back to the same general analysis, which I need a break above 260 on a macro candle close, something like a weekly. And then I would anticipate we move quickly up into 330 and higher. And I did have a fractal that I was preparing for right over here. And this fractal does show a move down into about May 8th, another test into May 17th, and then another test into May 27th, and then one final on June 21st. So it gives a little bit of time before we just have this insane swipe to the upside, which is really crazy to see, but it does align with the prior fractal from 2017. And you can see the way that I have it aligned, you are touching on the support of this low trend line, which was right around our breakout zone. And then once it goes into price discovery, it sharply moves into about $6, trades around that level, and then has one more final push, which this would be a game changer. This is $20. I am not saying that it will go to 20, but that would be fucking amazing. You know, like, I don't want to get too excited though. I want to keep it calm. I think above $4 is absolutely in the cards. A $5 to $7 is very much more where I'm aiming. The gematria tells me 7 to 8, and then we have the higher levels of 14, 15, 16, also based on gematria, and then up to 24, but I have never entertained above 25. So when I'm seeing some fractals and some other analysis that points to the potential move to 20, it's of course great to see, but like, we're talking 20% chances, right? We would need a major event to happen in this market. We would need to have Bitcoin dominance drop to like 30 again, which it did in the last 2 cycles, right? You could see right here, we're looking at Bitcoin dominance. We have this push down in the Q1 2018, and we have over here of 2021, we had to get to 40%. So yeah, we would have to have it back at least 40% for me to entertain that. And then it would like not need a flood into Ethereum. That, if those 2 things happen, if we see Bitcoin dominance break down into 40%, and then we see less of it flood into ERC and it goes into XRP instead, be beautiful. But as far as I'm aware, Ripple as a company is still doing the same bullshit they always do, which is dumping on investors. And I can't respect that. It just is what it is. I'm not pro Ripple at all. I'm just an investor in XRP and a trader of the chart. And I do think over time my investment thesis will change and develop. But until then, you know, it's just the truth of it all. You have to trade this coin. This is not a hodl coin. It's only become a hodl coin in Q4 of last year. But if you were treating it that way from 2018 till 2024, didn't feel so nice, right? And I've been trading this project and sharing YouTube videos since here. So this isn't my first rodeo. I've been saying the same things publicly. So we're finally here. We're in profits, but we can't be cultish about this right now. It's the worst time to be. All right, we're gonna move on to Polyswarm. No idea what this project is. This is a first for me. It has a ton of chart history though, so that's cool to see. We're gonna turn off all of this noise. We're going to expand this chart out the best we can and see what's going on. So we have chart history going back to 2018, a while ago, man. So this was part of the 2018 cycle. I'm going to pull a fib swing high over to the swing low, and we're going to see the all-time. So swing high to swing low came in May 2020, right after the C19 crash. Then it dramatically went up into a peak, gaining 15,000%. And look at the level that it hit, the 1618. I'm going to keep this entire fib pull for the rest of this chart. And I'm going to consider a couple things. But for one, we just recently hit the 1618 again. And the bottom of the market, if you were to pull it from right around here, we've already had 1,000% move plus on this particular project. So congrats to anyone who holds it. Now, we do have a support trend line that's been in play for some time. And I want everyone to be careful on this if you yourself are a holder, because the more this gets tapped, the more dangerous this gets. Another thing we could do is swap it to an area chart and get a little cleaner perspective on what's happening here. So something like that. You see, touch, couple times getting below it, final touch, and then we had this peak in between. It's been holding very nicely. Now, it might be the same case to the upside. This is what I do, by the way, when I want to. You guys have been seeing me do this lately. This shit's so cool. See how that works? I just copy and pasted it, and it shifts it up like a perfect amount. So it tells me that if we were to have the alt season and this was to have one more spike up, that wouldn't be weird for it to go to 14 cents again. And from where we are, that would be about 600%. But this line right there, you see about August, we have a rejection here, a rejection here, rejection here, and this comes up into about the 10-cent zone right at the 1618 again. So I don't know if this will have the juice to just keep going up and up and up. I'm not sure how popular this project is. I mean, it's not fallen back all the way to the lows of the prior bear market. That's very nice to see because a lot of coins have done that. This is not the case for Polyswarm. No. I think to me, the way that I would perceive this is getting back to the 702 at the end of this bull run was a very nice thing to see it hold this structure. Come back and hold the top of the golden pocket for a full year. That's 385 days, by the way. We're looking at a weekly chart. So this held the top of the golden pocket for a full year. That's an incredible sign of strength. And then also back testing the top of the 2018 cycle and this peak over here from April 2021, when most altcoins were topping, this project actually went up one more time into January 2022. That's pretty fucking rare because Bitcoin topped over here. So, wow, this project had a major surge in like a 2 to 3 week period. That's crazy. So, in that case, there could be a chance that during alt season, this is like one of the final movers because it's done it before. Bitcoin topping like here. November 11th was when November 10th is when Bitcoin topped. And then this project went on to go up 1,000%, like technically in 2 months. It's fucking crazy because very few things did that. So it had its alt season here as opposed to most things had their alt season here during this move. Very, very fascinating. But yeah, I would keep this in mind that it's been pretty much trading within these this overall parallel channel from here to the bottom. I'll change the color. Like red. Here we have red. So you can see it's been pretty much trading within this for 4 years. So until it can't hold the support anymore, once it does, it'll probably drop back to the 786. Yeah, that would make sense in the next bear market. It could probably come down to another right down there, same level that it came, that the same level where it launched off of. But I'd be looking to this 1618 one more time. So that's around 10 cents in August, perhaps September, depending on how this all goes. Really interesting chart. I would love to see how this develops. So in like maybe 2 to 3 months, we'll look at this again. Now we're going to look at Turbo token, which, okay. Wow. Okay, I don't know when the last time I covered this project was, but I had these mapped out in the last red pill I covered this, okay? You guys can go back to that, see what the hell I said, because we went perfectly into that area. That's fucking crazy. Wow, okay, so this is nuts because not only did it go into that area, it swiped through perfectly, came back up, and is now how much? 250%. That's nuts. I'm gonna delete this now. Now I would feel confident holding this fib as such, and this is your automatic rally. So yeah, this level right here is huge. I'm gonna draw it for you guys. Okay. I mean, it's not the most clean, but I don't really care. It's around the 382 fib. So you see, we have this Christmas tree top. We spend a bunch of time back testing this level over and over again before launching up. And here it's already showing weakness. Already showing weakness. These are all like kind of just up thrusts moving into a distribution. 1 second. All right. Okay, so then we have broken right back down to that level, and you see here, once we couldn't hold it finally, which by the way, this was probably almost a year, yeah, almost a full year, broke down below it. We filled out the key level that I had mapped out, which by the way, was back testing this peak, and because there was just some thin air from here to there. So we did fill this entire zone, which is great. Bad thing is we pumped straight through it. So this being buying climax, selling climax in the micro, like in the short term, this being your automatic rally perfectly at the 618, the golden pocket, that tells me this is going to get retested. And this could get retested. And that would be best. Honestly, though, like this can go like that. You see this? It could do that on the way up. So I think we've just done this move right here. And we're about to go into that move. This wick, this major wick down, likely to happen before July. So like boom. But also June, some chop. And then it'll look like that when it's all said and done. Or like this. Doesn't matter. Absolutely gross chart, but that's what we're working with here in crypto land. That break. So yeah, I think this is the play. I think this is coming back down, but fuck, whoever kept that level on their chart, amazing how that played out. And I could quickly show you how I got that level. It's not like witchcraft. You take from the support and you pull it up to the high. I mapped out the first level and then I pushed it up. That's usually how I would do this. But let's just say I only had this first level. Who cares if I only had that first level? You map out where the 1618 is on the downside. Then you just know that, okay, well, I have this peak here, a huge rejection, 70% off that peak, and we blasted straight through that. So backtesting that would be good, be healthy. So the easiest thing to do would be map out the prior level of a major pivot point and then match out the technical level, which we got from pulling the fib. And then we would have been able to swipe through that whole zone and collect 4 or 5 different entries. And whether you were here, like in the smack dab middle, you're fucking 200-something% play coming in fast. And then, of course, you get rejected at the golden pocket. That's very typical. Just like Bitcoin recently has pushed up into the golden pocket. Look, from swing high to swing low, we made it up into the golden pocket. It's typical, no matter what asset you're looking at. So what I teach with the fibs is kind of streamlining a lot of the complicated parts of doing TA. So yeah, I think I would at least expect the 382 because we'd see how many times it got back tested. The healthiest thing for it to do would be to do this type of move. It doesn't need to go lower. Doesn't need to, but that's the thing that we see though sometimes is we get these kind of drawdowns and then we squirm around and then we push low. See it right here. You see? Come to this level, push up, and then pushed a little lower. And you think you're good over here, but you're not. You come back down again. You think you're good over here and you're not. You come back down again. You see? That was 1, 2, 3, 4 tests of the same support before you finally got released in energy. Living through that is hell. So when you see me draw out something like this, don't get emotional, especially if you're a big investor. If you're somebody who missed this buy-in and you just started FOMOing now, it's like, relax, take this one step at a time. It's crypto. Chaos. Look at this drawdown, by the way. This was not fun. From top to this bottom. Oh, that's the 4 months 90% loss. Fuck that. That's an absolute shitcoin. So like you really want to be careful with this stuff, guys. This is venture capital. Play cautious with this. 90% correction. Come on. So if you bought any of this over here, you experienced the entire altcoin bear market in just a couple months on this bullshit. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to sound negative, but this is trash. Like, don't fucking play with projects that do this kind of stuff because you're just missing out on being in the top plays where, yeah, you might not get as much ROI, but yeah, for me, what I like about charts like this is it's cool for me to practice TA. Because if you could get good at TA on this type of stuff, like if I was able to map out these key levels for this to retest in how many months in advance, and then it happened, it came to fruition, that's just a sign that, okay, my TA skills are solid. I was able to anticipate this move by looking at the overall chart. Yay, we're all happy, but like I still won't invest in this thing because I just don't like charts that look like this. And I know that I'm not investing in anything that will have any use case in the future. And even if people wanted to argue with me about that, we've seen these arguments happen with Solana back in 2021, where I said it's going to lose 95% of its value. What happened? Let's look at the Solana chart really quickly. By the way, this was when Solana was at all-time highs. I was saying this. People were not happy. This thing lost 96% of its value, and I didn't even pull from the exact top. That's just crypto, guy. This is what it does. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I'm trying to make you into like sophisticated investors that don't get emotional about these sorts of things. So yes, this project's up 12% today. Yippee-doo. Just be careful, please, 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 please. And I'm sure for the people that saw me draw this out however many red pills ago, they looked at that and they were like, Waters, you're crazy, bro. This isn't ever going. Okay, well, here we are. So now we're going to wrap this up with a couple more. We have Polkadot. This is a project that I will not be personally getting myself involved in anymore. It's shown weakness pretty much across the board. Another missed opportunity to just invest in XRP, in my opinion. So, yep, lessons learned. This is now breaking back into the same exact bear market zone that we launched from when this project came out post C19 timeframe. And one of the things that I don't like about charts like this personally is it did not trade before C19. So we don't know what it's like for it to have to trade through a really just messed up market environment, right? That's a good thing to go back and look at charts that have traded through the C19 crash and see where they are today, because it allows us to see their resilience, right? Like a professional fighter, have you guys realized, or have you ever heard that sometimes people who are on a winning streak in fighting, whether that be MMA or jiu-jitsu, whatever, you know, boxing, and let's say they win 15 in a row and then they get knocked out once. Now their record is 15-1. And then for some reason, their next 5 fights, they lose like 4 out of the next 5. But they were killing it for the first 15. Because their first time getting knocked out in a professional fight, it destroys their confidence. And that's the resilience. So it's not about the first 15 fights anymore. It's about the recent 4 that you lost out of 5. That's what you remember, what you remember, and that's what the people remember. And because that's what you remember, that you see, it could become pretty destructive, and the competitive nature could, yeah, there's some self-sabotage that comes into play. So all I'm teaching here, the wisdom is, it's about when you get knocked down, how do you respond? Do you get back up and do you try again? And what happens next? And if, let's just say you lose 2 in a row, you should be even more motivated now to win. I'm not promoting boxing or professional contact sports, none of that. My point is, though, is that I actually utilize the same mindset when I'm looking at my charts. So when I look at the Bitcoin chart and I see that C19 crash was all the way down here, for an example, we went to $4,000. Today we are at 2,700% gains. So when you bought in the worst of the worst, today you're now benefiting quite, very well. Now I'm going to pick another project that I do invest in that it's a different story. And I could admit, look at this. This was during the C19 crash and we are the same exact price that we are today. But this did this. Bitcoin hasn't done a 10,000% move in a long time. So what's the play here? Well, with investing in this today, it would only need to go back up to this peak right here, and I will already make double than what I would make on Bitcoin doing the best possible move at the end of this bull run. Now, if this project was to only make it up to this peak, which was kind of where it launched, that's 1,000% move. Where would Bitcoin need to go for me to get 1,000% gains from here? Let's laugh together. Okay, 1 million a coin, right? So like that's why we would want to hold a lot of this in our portfolio, because no matter what the fuck happens on the world stage, we can continue up. But with the venture capital plays, we get to have the ROI. It's just got to be safe though. I wouldn't put 50% of my portfolio in Filecoin, the example I just showed you. And the same thing goes for Polkadot. The same thing goes for the Turbo token. You know, of course, Turbo and Polkadot, they all had their time to shine. You know, this went up 1,000% once too, even though today it's still down at the same price of where it launched. So yeah, just kind of telling you what's up here. So I'm going to mark one more level for you guys to consider. And it's here between around the 382. Where we are right now is the same level this launched from, meaning we can do this shit all over again. Don't get it twisted. It could do the same move. 117 days, it could go up 1,000%. Sure, I'm not banking on that. I think this level right there around $24 is more what I'm expecting, unless for whatever reason we get an amazing alt season where Bitcoin dominance drops to 40%. But right here, we're looking at about 500%. So for anyone who bought the bear market of this, it's still a nice move. It's a dramatic move, especially considering where like stocks would be. So I would personally, in my opinion, if I held this, I would de-risk or sell all of it in this cycle, because it's not shown itself to do that well, right? And it's not an ISO 222 thing. It's not going to be a big part of the conversation in the Aquarian economy. It holds a momentary piece in the conversation, but I wouldn't get too caught up in holding large amounts of this at this time. But keep this in mind. Once we get back above the 236, which is $7, I do expect a sharp move up to the 382. And if it could finally close like a bi-weekly candle above $11, I think it will go 100% from there, straight to the 702. That could happen very rapidly. So that's about the zone, maybe around 30 to 35. On the higher end. And if that's the case, then now we're talking. You know, we're pretty much getting the same results that we got in the last alt season, unless you bought the launch, right? And then in that case, of course, you were in a much better position. Now let's wrap up today's red pill with VXV, Vector Space Biosciences. That's a lot to say. Where are we? Okay, oh yes, I have covered this before, but I don't remember. I think I had to get rid of the chart because there was something weird about it. Like there was some weird, like it was missing data. So where are we now? Ooh, yeah, this is not good. This is going right back to where, so speaking of projects that are still back where the C19 crash was, this is a good example. And let me show you a couple things. So we have here was the selling climax for Bitcoin. This thing went lower in October, where Bitcoin was going, like it was already up here in this territory. Now this is where it had a good move, but we went lower here. And then recently we went even lower and for a longer amount of time. That's not good. That's 4 continuous drives to the downside. And that high being higher than this high and this low being lower, that's very weak. So I would not touch this project personally. This is very tough to call because it's technically still like in price discovery to the downside, and it has no cycle, no cyclical structure, right? Because sure, it went up with everything at the same time, but now it's returned right back to the same zone of where it launched, just like the Polkadot project that we were just looking at. So I'd be very careful with this. Good thing is, this could be your spring. So we're talking buying climax. We're talking macro here. We have selling climax or selling climax, who cares? And then we have automatic rally or automatic rally. I don't care. And then if this is your spring, this whole move here, then that's it. That's as low as this shit gets. Now, I feel much more confident calling that just because it's finally returned back to this zone. Let me show you why that's important. Because if I draw over here to here, we had, let me show you how many days. That, my friends, is 1 calendar year trading there. We barely went back there. Here, just a couple weeks, maybe a month. Here, just like a month. And then here, now we're filling this shit out. Finally, it was going to happen, guys. It was going to happen. So that's why I feel confident that this should be your V-shape spring. But it has to happen fast. Something like this. And I can't guarantee that it will go higher than the bottom of the golden pocket. I can't, you know, like, because this is a sign right here. Major rejection, start of the bear market, clear confirmation of the bear market, right? And then you have here, this was a fucking 84% correction, man. So yeah, be careful on that move, because sure, we can make it back up to that yellow line right there below the 702. I think that'd be a gift. Oh, fuck. Okay, who cares? This is fucking 2000%. So take it and leave it. God, yeah, don't get angry at that analysis, because, like, shit, man, if you were able to make it up to this yellow line again, that's fucking life-changing money for some people. So I would say get happy. Although holding this and not taking any profits or de-risking along the way has been a bummer. So yeah, we did swipe through this level finally, which makes the correct, what is this, 99.99%? Yeah, 99.6 fucking percent. Trash. Yeah, this is horrendous. So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I would not feel safe investing in charts that look like this. But it is kind of on the venture capital, like, Filecoin like looking chart. Looks horrible, but this whole pushing down much lower thing is scary. That's 50 additional percent. Whilst I don't know, what's the Filecoin chart at now? Yeah, this shit's pushing lower too. But, like, we've been here before. About 19%, but right now we're back up. Still looks bad, can't deny. But I'm probably going to buy some Filecoin if we do get another pullback. Why not? Might as well. This, on the other hand, there's no need for me to add another venture capital position to my personal portfolio. So I'm going to wrap this one up here. You see the play. We are pretty beaten and bruised down at these levels of 11 cents. So this could be an opportunity for some people. An AI project, it's pretty toasted though. Be careful with this. You know, we're talking 1 to 2% max of your overall portfolio. Now, we're going to wrap this one up. We have some weakness showing up in the final moments of Bitcoin's weekly close. We have the CME officially open. You guys are on camera, going to see me put this gap in. I'm going to go down to the 1 hour chart. We're going to put this gap somewhere like that. Boom, boom. And yeah, let's see which one gets filled first. I mean, ideally, getting this out of the way into the full moon would be the play. Filling this upside one and continuing higher after would be great to see. So let's let this play out. You guys know my opinion about how I see the next week going. It's a very transformational week, as it had all those 33 connections starting off 33 days since Liberation Day. This is the number of transmutation, changing from one form to the next. And I very much feel like all the symbolism that we've gotten with the death of the Pope, Warren Buffett stepping down from Berkshire, all of these things are incredibly symbolic. So I believe we have a powerful week ahead. I will, of course, be sharing my thoughts on how I see this playing out over with any new updates, depending how the market opens tomorrow and as we have the upcoming FOMC meeting. But until then, I'm wishing you all a beautiful rest of your day in the Matrix. Much love.